This is the Twin Cities Real Estate Investing Show. Real stories, real success in Twin Cities real estate. Join your hosts, Adam Tafel and Tim Swierczek, as they dive into the world of Twin Cities real estate investing. Together, they share valuable insights and practical tips to help both new and seasoned investors navigate the Minneapolis-St. Paul market. With a focus on relatable stories from real people, this show will empower you with the knowledge and confidence to thrive in your investing journey. Guys, take it from here.
What's up, Tim?
Hey, man. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. We have Bruce Brunner today.
Yeah. Bruce is a longtime investor, was very active in the meetup community early on, the very early meetups, and has done some kind of coaching of local investors. And I don't believe for a fee or anything. I just ran into him multiple times over the years. You'll hear in the podcast through a client, that was my first real big introduction. I met him personally, but we never stayed in contact. And then I met him through a transaction. And he's a consummate professional when it comes to real estate. Really knows his stuff, does everything, permitted by the book, all that. He actually does renovations that other people just simply couldn't afford, because he's just got everything dialed in.
Yeah. Bruce gets into some really just great local specifics. I think that was my favorite part of this interview. We're talking about duplex to triplex conversions. We're talking about the 4D program, Section 8, and how that is, could be different based on what city you're in. And yeah, just a lot of good tangible knowledge. And it is cool. Bruce doesn't necessarily have anything to gain by putting on meetups or helping people out. He doesn't have a brand. He's not like an agent or a lender,
Yeah, exactly.
He's just a guy who seems to care about helping people. So that's pretty cool. For the same reason why he's on this podcast. He's here to help people. He's got nothing to promote. Mm-hmm. Pretty cool. So I think you guys will enjoy this episode. Here's Bruce. Investors, if a deal gets messy, call Network Title. They can handle the BRRRR, the 1031, mixed use, commercial, whatever it takes so you can close on time. Mentor of mine, guy who I really respect, Kirk Duckwall, says, working with Network Title is kind of like having another personal assistant. That's how on the ball these people are. Network Title, complex deals made simple. Link in the show notes. One of the hardest parts of investing is finding a solid property manager. I've worked with plenty over the years. Some are better than others. Earlier this year, I did a 10-unit deal where John and his team at RPM Viking handled the management for our mutual out-of-state client. They were professional. They were responsive. They delivered exactly as promised. Now they are my #1 management referral, and I'm proud to have them supporting the show. Learn more at rpmviking.com. Use the code TCREI300 for $300 off maintenance services when you sign up with RPM Viking as your property manager. Thanks for sponsoring the show. Welcome to the Twin Cities Real Estate Investing Show, brought to you by Shook. Shook is the all-in-one platform to help you manage your rentals, built for real estate investors just like us. Shook offers lightning-fast ACH payments. I just got a few properties set up with Shook, and I'm getting paid way faster than my old service. They can also do custom things, like if you need to pay a manager a percentage, they can take care of that. The staff at Shook, Oliver, and the team are just so awesome to work with, and we want to thank Shook for sponsoring the podcast. At $5 per unit per month, it's totally worth checking out shookrentals.com to book a live demo. In the show notes, we're also offering a discount of 20%. Use the code TCREI20. Thank you. What's up, Bruce?
Hey, guys.
How we doing today, man?
Good. I already have half a day in, though.
Do you, right?
We don't know each other at all, I don't think.
Right.
Why don't you introduce us, Tim?
Well,
How do we know Bruce?
I kind of did the whole rambling with Bruce earlier, but I'm a fan of his, right? I met him, when there used to be, the only meetup in town was called the bi-monthly Bigger Pockets meetup or something like that. It was run by Dan Coleman and a contractor whose name was Dan. And it was out in Edina, which is a really long ways away from me. And I met Bruce and Pavel and a few other people who are, in the business then. And over the years, you know, he was big on Bigger Pockets, and then did some other meetups for, I think it was that same group, but it was just in Minneapolis. Right. And long story short, Bruce has done some things that most other investors haven't done, and just like a real core thing, including some of my clients. I met you also. I found out about you later because one of my clients bought one of your triplexes. Yep. Remember the ones you converted? Yeah. So anyway, long story short, I mean, we can talk about triplex conversions. We can talk about the city of Minneapolis working with their permitting, working with their rent control. There's just so many topics. So thank you for
about some low income things like stable homes, stable schools. I do Section 8. I'll talk about getting financial assistance, how difficult that is or not difficult. And we'll talk about 4D, which a lot of people have heard about but don't know. So there's some real advantages, disadvantages. So hopefully,
I'd like to hear both sides of that, because obviously I know what they say the advantages, but the disadvantage seems to me that like it would scare off a new buyer. Even if it's a good thing, you actually have to overcome like that buyer going, oh, you mean I have to keep rents low forever? Well, not really, right? I mean, that's not exactly how it works, but we usually like to start off with like, let's find out, you know, how you got started, right? So we can kind of get a little bit of a background, then but I want to spend the bulk of the time on the cool stuff you've done. So we'll do that one a little quicker.
So I'll try to keep the synopsis short. So I've been investing for a little bit over 15 years. I grew up, and my dad was a barber. He was self-employed, and he figured out, hey, I got to do something for retirement. So he started buying duplexes a long time ago, right? But before it was even known to be a thing. So while I grew up, I learned how it worked. So, you know, my mom handled all the tenant issues, and I saw it, right? So fast forward to I'm 49. My wife and I live in Eden Prairie. My kids have now all graduated, and she's like, you know, I'm really not a suburban kind of person. I'd rather either be rural or urban. I said, well, I'm urban. I said, and I want something very distinctive. And so I started looking around, and when we talked about what our preferences were, they were pretty far apart, except we both said, what about buying a duplex? Because I explained, you know, what house hacking was. So we bought our first investment property as a house hack in Minneapolis in the Kenwood neighborhood.
At the age of 49.
At the age of 49.
I love that. I had no idea.
Yeah. And because I was 49, we both had 401ks. So we're different than a lot of people in that we had quite a bit of money to start, right? So everyone says don't cash out your 401ks, but I started looking at what was out there, right? So the great financial crisis really happened in 2008, and it extended through about 2012 or 13. So when I started looking, there were 10 to 20 sellers, for every buyer. No one was buying anything. I mean, it was like Armageddon. Like people talk about
no one had any money.
No one had any money. People were losing jobs. I mean, like people say, oh, you were so lucky to have it. It was a huge thing. And what we were doing is we'd cash out 401k money for the down payment. And I had friends my age that are like, what are you doing? Well, when I calculated out, my first property was a 25% cash on cash return. And I'm like, listen, it can only get better because I'm getting permanent financing. And rent will far exceed the rate of increase over the expenses because my biggest expense is the mortgage, right? So I'm like, where could you possibly get a guaranteed 25% rate of return? So we bought the first one and we house hacked and went, wow, this is pretty easy, right? We had sold our house, used that part of the down payment to buy the first one. And that was in 2010. 2011, we bought 2 properties. 2012, 2 properties. 2013, 2, 3, 4. Because I got my general contractor's license and we would buy things that needed a lot of work. So everything we bought was kind of a BRRRR, right? So, and a BRRRR is buy, renovate, refinance, rent, right? So, or rent, refinance. And part of my ethos was to keep the money in the properties. I rarely did cash out refinances, right? So I left the equity in there because my goal wasn't to have the most properties possible because, as Tim knows, and I've told a lot of people, I kind of had a deal with my wife. I'll limit myself to 10 properties. And so we lived in Kenwood, so in Uptown. And the other kind of parameter was I would only buy properties within 2 miles of my house.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to be running to Woodbury or Brooklyn Center. And that's a target-rich environment for rentals. So, and we revised it so it was, I could have 10 properties as long as I could have more as long as I had a plan. So I started buying once all these properties became available. There was a lot of work to do. I got my general contractor's license. I had a crew, and we were working nonstop. So I would buy properties and stack them. So I'd have them ready for as soon as I finished something, I was ready for another one. So typically I was renovating and refurbishing or building 3 or 4 properties a year. So I've either built or fully renovated 31 buildings in Minneapolis and St. Paul. 30 of them are in Minneapolis. One was in St. Paul. And after I did the one in St. Paul, I said I would never do business in St. Paul again. It was so difficult.
What year was that?
So the St. Paul one?
Yeah.
Probably 2015.
Okay.
So, and that's before rent control or anything else. But with Minneapolis, and we'll talk a little bit about working in the city of Minneapolis.
Yeah, I want to definitely talk about that.
But their CPED, it was so permitting and planning department is very straightforward. They might be a little bit strict, but you know exactly what you have to do to complete it. And the inspectors are very straightforward and follow the same pattern, all of them. In St. Paul, everything determined on who came out or who you talked to. They wanted to redo your plans for you practically, or they'd come out and say, oh, no, you can't do this. You got to do this. A different inspector would come out and go, oh, no, that's fine. So I just said, it's too difficult. I need high predictability. Mm-hmm. So
I actually ran into one house on DuPont Avenue where we had that in Minneapolis, where we just kept getting blasted by them. They'd come out and we're like, could you have told us 4 months ago this, and I think it was a trainee and some other things, but it was awful. But I haven't had that experience every time. So,
Yeah. And maybe I'm a little bit hard on St. Paul, but there's more rentals in Minneapolis, and the average rent is higher. So the average upside was greater as well.
Sure.
So, what I would do is we would only buy properties that needed work. And primarily we bought properties where we could add bedrooms. That was, I would say, 80 to 85% of all of my renovations. I've added bedrooms to add income. We've done different types of conversions. We've bought a lot of side-by-side duplexes where we added bedrooms in the basement. We've done 2 duplex to triplex conversions, which are extremely difficult.
Yeah.
But we were able to do them. And so once I started posting about that, everyone wanted to know how could they do theirs. And we'll talk about that briefly. And then I
noticed a lot of people ask about new construction online too.
Yeah. So then I started building, and I've built a couple triplexes once the 2040 plan went in. And so my son-in-law, who wanted to get in the business also, I started teaching him everything, and he said, well, what can I do for you? So Kevin is an extremely sharp individual. I said, well, why don't you get your real estate license? That way we keep it inside the family, and we can go in any property we want the day it hits. So we have a formula, and after you do this formula of, what the return on investment is going to be, how much money, it becomes second nature. I can literally walk into a property and know within a couple minutes whether the formula is going to work, because I've done it so many times that it's rote. So that's one of the things we did. And so,
can you talk about your formula a little bit? Like, what does that look like?
So the formula, it's just, you can do it off Excel, right? So I have the rent, whatever income you have minus your mortgage, your insurance, your property tax. And over time, we have a very good idea of how much we're going to spend on maintenance and CAPEX. So we have that calculation, how much we have to put down, what the return on investment threshold is, and we have a very high threshold. But all of our calculations or purchases are value add. So we know, and because we've done renovations and building so much, we know the actual cost of doing things. And that's the hardest thing for someone that's starting out, is to figure out how much something's going to cost. So, and once we calculate that, we plug in what the upside in rent is going to be, and we make a decision literally right then and there. And
are we offering? Are we moving on?
Yep. And I had a couple mortgage brokers or small banks that I work directly with that we literally have a carte blanche. They have said we will underwrite anything you bring to us because they saw our track record, and it made it easy.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And so, let's talk a little bit about, so you built up this portfolio and this kind of 10 place rule or a thing. And I know that you had been buying places and then selling them off, because one of my clients, Ian, and his wife purchased, I think it was two places from you. Yeah. And one of them was maybe on Minnehaha. Does that sound right? I don't know.
It's close.
Minnehaha Parkway? Yeah. Oh, it's close. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But so one of the things is, I wanted to limit myself to having 10 properties because I self-manage. And not only do I self-manage, I handle repairs, and I have guys that work for me, right? But I do all the showings and have averaged less than a 1% vacancy rate over 15 years. So I literally barely plug that in, because no one cares about my profitability and my properties more than me.
Yeah.
So, and I actually enjoy that because I want to know who is in my properties. Right. So as I was buying properties, I would 1031 or sell some of them in order to get the money to buy bigger and more profitable ones. So over time, I've had 31 buildings. So I've had over 50 transactions in total. So I've done regular 1031, reverse 1031s.
Oh, that's a
I've
trick.
done a bunch of different scenarios in order to kind of roll
Get
over.
to where you're at. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I'm at the point now that I'm now looking at some opportunity zone or some REITs to be able to convert 1031 into some of those as a way to ultimately bypass.
Unlock it. Yeah.
Yeah. Unlock it and, try to avoid the depreciation recapture. So there's, So we're looking at a couple of those, but we're also willing, as I hit retirement, right? I've been semi-retired for about 5 years, just doing this now. We're willing to sell properties as well. So I'm not worried about the tax implication. I'm not going to let the tail kind of drive the dog kind of thing. So
Sure. Well, and I mean, for anyone listening, the opportunity zone was meant for exactly that. It was to encourage someone like you to invest in an area you wouldn't normally invest in. Right. These areas need the investment, and we're very successful for the first few years they were around, because people are like, what? I can do what? Right. Yeah. So they got, and now, so hopefully it works out for you.
Yeah, very well.
So you are in a tight area of Minneapolis, and this show is definitely about the Twin Cities. So let's talk a little bit about the neighborhoods that you're in.
Yeah. I should say, I'll go as far as 4 miles from my house now.
Oh, wow. Okay. You doubled. Now that you're retired, you have more time.
Are you got a Tesla? Drives you there?
No, I don't. My kids had to shame me a little bit. I had a van that I used, and they're like, Dad, we all have new cars. You're doing so well. Will you buy something new? So I have a nice truck. So, which I could write the whole thing off on a Section 179. So I'm one class from an accounting degree. So I'm extremely tax savvy. Okay. So I think it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep of what you're making. My dad taught me that. So that's an important thing to think about. And, you know, my pitch to people who are like, I'm thinking about getting into real estate, I'm looking for different, you know, ways to build my wealth. You know, about 60% of my income is sheltered because of depreciation and some other types of things. So that's the way that I keep more of the money that I make.
Yeah. I frankly, I have made that mistake a couple times that it's hurt me. Yeah. You know, I've had these really great tax refunds and then some really big hits, you know, and it's all revolving around not being tax efficient necessarily. I mean, I have been in some cases on the buy side, but on the sell side not. And, you know, you live and you learn, right?
Yes.
I definitely learned on some of those and definitely have changed my attitude towards it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, okay. So you're up to 4 miles. Let's talk about like the neighborhoods that you're in and what you see as the advantages and the disadvantages of those.
Yeah.
So like, where are you right now in terms of neighborhoods?
So right now, I'm in Whittier, Lindale, Kingfield, Seward, and I have one property down by Minnehaha Falls. Okay. So, but my properties are very closely clustered. I used to have 8 properties in Whittier, so between Franklin and Lake Street.
Okay.
So we only have 3 there now. So as time has gone by, and as the George Floyd incidents and, you know, some other changing demographics, we've moved farther south with our properties as a way to stay in the greater uptown area, but be in a little more desirable. So now I have more properties around 36th versus north of Lake.
Got it.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, and I'm familiar with some things that happen. Plus, my brother lives in your neighborhoods, and then so talk to us about that area and how and what. I mean, I guess I kind of know why you made that switch, but let's get a little more details. Like, what were you fighting? Okay, well, let's start with this. What sort of problems did you encounter as a landlord or a property owner prior to moving the properties that?
Yeah.
You know?
So what I found was over time, just use the example of after George Floyd, because there were demonstrations, there were, some fires, there's different types of things that businesses closing, that was probably a big impact.
Yeah.
So from a rental standpoint, I still have a very low vacancy rate, but instead of 20, 25 people contacting me and wanting to see the place and rent it, it slowly came down to maybe there's 5 people. So that became an indicator to us that, moving to more.
Demand was lower. Yeah.
The demand was lower. So we wanted to move to a higher demand area.
Okay.
And one thing I would say is 70% of all of our properties are 3 bedrooms or more, which is highly unusual. And when we only built properties with 3 or 4 bedrooms.
Yeah.
So we're either very family centric or roommate centric.
Yeah.
Because that's how we found that we can maximize the profitability and the rents. And that's where we took, duplex or triplexes that had 2-bedroom units and convert them into 3. And suddenly we're going from someone who was renting below market at $1,200 and now I'm getting $2,000 because I improved the property, added a bedroom in different types of ways. And that's really how you can increase your profitability.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. So, okay. So
there's one last change, and that is there was a change in schooling boundaries. So anything south of 36th Street, the high school you go to is north, and anything south of 36th goes to South Minneapolis. Okay. So we found that made an impact for some of our properties that there were kids. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What have you seen values do post Floyd in some of those areas? Yeah. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. We still continue to see increases in values. I sold 2 properties last year in 1031s because I bought larger units that also needed work that we were able to do a value add. But I increased the profitability by doing the renovations and renting them over my previous triplexes I sold by 50%. So, but we were able to get, premium prices for the triplexes we had. Every property I own or have owned has been pretty much fully renovated. So, for someone that's newer to the business, and a lot of people that have bought my properties tend to be newer, or they're house hacking. Everything's done.
Yeah, Ian was particularly impressed with the amount of stuff you did. Like you did like some of the guts and the mechanicals that weren't obvious, and that was a big thing. He raved about you, right? And just the fact that you didn't just lipstick and peg it.
It's not lipstick on a peg at all.
Yeah.
We do electrical, we do plumbing. We make sure, and we can do it very, very efficiently because we're doing it ourselves. We're not, and some of the partners I have, like electricians and plumbers, have been working with me for a decade. So I get prioritized, and I get the same team every time, and they know how we work. Yeah. So that made a real big difference. So, yeah.
Well, and it's a good argument for there's certain things in this investing world that are outside of our control, right?
Yeah.
A pandemic is outside of our control. A bunch of riots are outside of our control. Buying these value add heavy deals is protection for you. If we're comparing apples to apples, if you had a triplex and you could sell it in 2019 or you could sell it in 2021 and it's in Whittier, well, we all wish we had a time machine to sell it in 2019. You're protecting yourself with these massive value adds.
Right. So I have greater flexibility, and I was meeting with some Fidelity expert that's an expert in real estate because of the type of portfolio we have. And I said, I might wait a while to sell a couple more units before I do a conversion, wait for interest rates. He goes, listen, that's not going to help you. He said, yes, your values might rise, but what you're investing in is going to rise at the same time. He said, you're better off if you can sell them, and then make the conversion to a REIT or some of the other more sophisticated. It's really DSTs, which is a Delaware
State Trust or statutory trust.
Statutory trust, right? So we're looking at some of those, but we're cautious. So.
What are you have to keep your money in those a while, right? They're not completely illiquid, or are they? Or you probably have to for tax reasons.
Well,
right?
It depends which one. So a DST and REITs, you have 1 year into the DST, then 2 years into a REIT. But sell fractional shares. You can do a lot of things, but
Can you borrow against one of those if you need to? Okay.
No. So, but
can you break it down what these things are?
Yeah, I think I'm probably not the best person because I wouldn't want someone to rely on me. I would say,
sure,
talk.
It's closer to buying shares in real estate, right? Or it's much closer to buying a share in Target than it is to owning a piece of real estate, except you do get the benefits of real estate, right? Because things pass through, right? Tax advantages and things of that nature pass through. So
it's like a fractional ownership of a portfolio.
Right.
So when you do a DST, you're doing it into one property for 1 year, and then it's absorbed into a REIT. So there's some very sophisticated things, right? And that's why I don't want to get into too much because I want a real expert to talk about those things. But what I thought I would do is talk about a couple things around as I began doing my investing in renovation. One of the things that was a passion for me was teaching other people about house hacking. So I don't know if you guys have covered house hacking very much yet. I've tried to watch all of your podcasts because they're great. But
thank you.
What I started doing is doing meetups through Bigger Pockets and some other formats, and I would teach people how to house hack. So house hacking is essentially buying a duplex or triplex, moving into one of the units and renting the other. It's the most cost-effective way to get into home ownership. So like in some of the areas that my properties are in, a single-family home costs about $400,000. A duplex or a triplex might cost $400,000 to $500,000. So, the equation, if you're willing to, have, share part of your building, which if you rent, you're doing the same thing anyway, right?
Yeah.
But you build equity, you get tax advantages, But I've taught well over 100 people, and 35 of those, probably 110, 120 people have bought and house hacked after I taught them. So, that's one of the things that I'm really proud of, because it got people into home ownership, and several of those people have gone on to buy lots of properties and have become investors and, have passed me by. I think it's great.
Quick little on-air production meeting. Can you introduce to us a couple of interesting ones that we could have on the podcast at some point?
I'll talk to you after the fact.
Yeah.
That's no problem.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I think that's one of them. One of the other things I've done is I've become very successful at what I do. And so I've become slowing down. But one of the ways that I give back is I got involved in a program that the city started. It's called Stable Homes, Stable Schools. And what they found was 7% of the kids in the Minneapolis school district have housing instability. They're either in a shelter, they're homeless. Instability. And so I've become an expert on Section 8 and all the processes that are involved. But one of the advantages are most of my properties are 70 to 100 years old. They've all been renovated, but that's Class C. They're in nice neighborhoods, but Section 8, my reimbursement for that is as good as market rate. So it gives people an opportunity to get in housing. The rents are between $1,500 and $2,000, and typically most of the people that I'm supplying housing to are coming out of trauma situations, so their portion of the rent is between $75 and $400 a month. But it gives them a way to not be homeless and to get into housing.
When did you get involved in that program?
I started 6 years ago at the inception, so I was part of the first round of people to test it.
Okay.
And now they provide permanent housing to over 200 families.
Wow.
Okay.
So, do you get any sort of a premium compared to market rent, or do you think you're just getting about what's fair?
What I think I get about what market rent is.
Okay.
And but I get some advantages in that when I bought a 5-plex and we converted all the bedrooms from 2 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms. So
it's a small 3-bedroom.
It's a smaller 3-bedroom, which would be a little more difficult to market to open market, but for Section 8 it works great. So I think
so. That's a kind of a roundabout way of saying yes, I am getting a bit over market rent.
Well, and that's kind of how I feel. We have the place on Edmond in St. Paul, and we get what you would call market rent, except that in that area, most people couldn't afford market rent, right? And so then you're taking a risk on someone like, oh, you're 2 times rent for your income, not 3 or whatever, right? And you have those issues. So there's some of that happens too, where you're getting like rent that you get in a better neighborhood,
Let me ask you this then. This is great timing because I have a 1:30 appointment to show a house to someone with a voucher. and I've never done it before.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's December 17th.
Yes.
And I would like to find a good tenant.
It's really difficult to find tenants in the winter, right?
Yeah.
And so, any advice for me? I'm about to perhaps do this for my first time. I guess I'm going into it like I'm going to look at this application like any other application and maybe deny them. Not just because the rent's guaranteed doesn't mean I'm going to rent to them.
Right.
Anything else?
That's what Section 8 will tell you. They'll say, like you have to make a business decision. Yeah.
Yeah. It's on you. It's a little bit difficult having a third party involved because like you have to answer to all of their requirements, but they're not responsible for the tenant at all. But what I tell people is do the credit and criminal background check, do an individual assessment or review of those things, and talk to the person because a lot's going to come down to your gut feeling, right? If they're Section 8 or voucher, why did they leave their last place? Talk to whoever, was, and do they have evictions on their record? Typically, their credit's not going to be great, so you have to, weigh in. If your rent is $1,700 and the voucher for $1,500, you only have a $200 exposure, right? Now, I also just had an eviction a couple months ago against someone who, I didn't really lose any money because, her portion of the rent was $200, right? Section 8 in Minneapolis also has a reserve fund of $2,500 over and above your security deposit. So that's another big advantage for me.
What is the reserve fund for?
You might not know this, but does St. Paul have that, or is that only
I don't know.
Okay, I just want to ask.
Yeah, I don't know. So they'll cover. So I have a place where I get essentially $2,000 a month. So for Section 8 clients, I charge 1.5 times rent as a security deposit. So I'm holding $3,000, right? So when it's time for them to move out, I have $3,000 plus $2,500 available to me. So missed rent and damage up to $5,500. So this person I evicted. Now it takes a little bit of time, took 90 days, but they owed almost a full month's rent and they had a lot of damage, right? I'm getting a full reimbursement on all of that. So I just
up to $2,500 per lease, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
And I kept the security deposit. So
understood.
When you combine it all, yeah.
When you combine it all, it's much more advantageous versus someone that might have been market. Like I had someone moved into one of my properties. I don't allow dogs. I've had really bad experiences. But as you guys know, if you have someone can get an emotional support certificate from whatever, right? I mean, it's easy to get.
It's a joke. Yeah.
Yes. So I had someone that wanted to rent a single family house. They said, we want to get a pit bull. Is that okay? I said, don't rent from me. I said, I won't even rent to you. They said, okay, we won't. 2 weeks after they moved in, I was presented with a emotional support certificate from a psychologist for a pit bull.
But do you know you don't have to accept it? Do you know why?
Go ahead.
Because you don't have to accept any emotional support animal that causes you that's not a reasonable accommodation, and that can affect your insurance. So if your insurance company will insure it for no additional cost, then you don't have a reason. But for my insurance company, they have a list, and that's not on it's on the list of dogs you can't have. Yeah. Right. So that's why you can point to insurance and say you still don't qualify
on some breeds.
Yes, there's a list of let's call it 7 or 8 breeds.
Yes, but.
Yeah. So the pit bull specifically would have been the problem.
But this one, I mean, they walked away and they didn't want to do a checkout. They just said, keep it. So much damage. So I just use that as an example, right? That, with Section 8 in Minneapolis, at least I'm covered on the downside.
Yeah.
So
that's nice.
Other piece that I want to bring up that I do part and parcel with the Section 8 is I put these 3 buildings that I allow Section 8 and have people that are coming out of homelessness or a shelter or things like that. I put it into the 4D program. So the 4D program is a property tax abatement through the city and the state that they reduce. If I sign a contract. It's a 10-year contract that I'll keep these units or these buildings in at 60% AMI or less. I make a 10-year commitment. They reduce my property tax by 80%. So this building I just bought last year, renovated in the first year, my property tax was $15,000. It'll be essentially $2,800 this year. So I'm saving almost $1,000 a month. So either as additional profit or to supplement if I need to, have any issues or, and then they have energy efficiency grants that they'll get for new boiler, hot water heaters, windows, some other types of things. Now, there's a bunch of hoops to jump through, right? But they'll co-op some of the money. So it makes it advantageous.
Yeah.
So there's upside and downside.
It's something I've been becoming open to. And I think the real thing is you have to realize it pairs extremely well with Section 8 because what you said was kind of key is those people have to make below 60%. But that doesn't mean your rent has to be 60% of market. It just means the people you're renting to has to be 60% of AMI.
So essentially, the rent level caps out at what Section 8 is.
Yeah.
Because Section 8 is a 60% percentile of rent to market. So like in Minneapolis, they just changed their 4D program. And I was able to influence because I'm on the city's advisory housing committee.
Yeah.
So for 3 and 4 bedrooms, you can rent up to 60% AMI, and now on 1 and 2 bedrooms, it's at 50%. So
the downside to the 4D program, you don't know me. I'm a real estate agent. I help a lot of people buy small multifamily, small commercial. Buyers don't like it. Buyers just don't like seeing, there's something attached to this property and I don't have control over it. Yeah. And it really is kind of a deal killer. Yeah. But for guys like you, you're going to be holding real estate for a long period of time. It is what it is.
That's a really good point because that's the downside, right? Mm-hmm. When someone knows that they have to fit these rules, they make a determination. Someone who's like brand new, it would freak me out, right? But for people like us that are seasoned, we go, listen, I'm already getting market rent, and I can save $1,000 a month in property tax. I'm going to do it, right? Because it adds to your cash flow.
Yeah, I would save $5,000 a year on one of my properties. Now that I just did the math in my head, by the way, in one of my properties in St. Paul, Ramsey County, it went from $4,200 to $6,200.
Right? I mean, that's
in 1 year.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So, last year my property tax went up on average about 15%. This year, about 8%. Yeah. My insurance is up between 25 and 35%. So I have all these.
But that's a couple years over years. That insurance isn't just 1 year from low to
I'm paying easily doubled in the last 5 years.
Yeah, easily. So,
but I think you really bring up a good point. So if you're buying. Do you want, you have to know that it's a Section 8 driven property, but you weigh that downside against the cash flow. And since I'm a long-term hold and I'm in this program, that it's really, it works for me. Mm-hmm. So I kind of reinvest some of that money back into the property.
Are there any loopholes to get a property out of 4D? Like if you move you and your grandma into it and for a couple of years?
There's loopholes. You can get out of the program by paying the money back.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, if you're only 2 or 3 years in,
right,
no problem. If you're 8 years in, well, you only got 2 more years before it expires too.
Yeah.
So I mean, you have to weigh these things, right? Mm-hmm. I would say the 4D program is for people that are seasoned investors in for the long haul.
Good way to put it.
Yeah. Those are the ones who are going to understand it. It actually could be for other people. Well, no, I usually don't advise people to start off in Section 8 because it is more complicated, including, like you mentioned, like my biggest frustration, and you might not have this with it, but I feel like every time we have someone look at it, we have no idea what they're going to pay in rent until we get pretty far into the process.
Right.
Because I can ask $2,800, but then Section 8 is going to say, well, that's not affordable for this person. We'll only pay you $2,740. Okay, fine. We'll pay you $2,400. not fine. And I've heard all of it in between, right? Like and so it literally, the big thing I'd say to you is when you say, what should I look for? Number one, make sure the voucher size matches the units you're showing. Yes. I get this all the time. We have a 5-bedroom and we'll have people come to us with 4-bedroom vouchers. Yep. Oh, I'm going to get a 5.
Yeah, it's
in 6 months. I don't know. No, I'm exaggerating a little bit. They can actually get them kind of quick, but the time it's going to take for you to find out if they're going to get their 4 vouchers going to be a 5 voucher is going to be weeks at least. Yeah. Maybe
so
longer.
This woman says, I have this house listed at $2,500 a month. It's in Bryn Mawr. This is a good area. 3-bedroom, 1 bath.
The maximum you can get for a 3-bedroom with Section 8 is because I know all these almost by heart, right? Because I have enough of them.
Yeah.
There's a cap that Section 8 will put on it, right?
Yeah.
And they allow some tenants to go above the cap, but so for a 3-bedroom apartment where they pay for the heat and electricity, $1,925 is how much Section 8 will approve. Now they do allow some people to go above that, but
if they're real high income, right?
Yeah,
That's
if they
have to pay the difference. But
they have
to pay the difference.
Yes.
So there's no chance in Minneapolis because she says she has a voucher for $2,500. That's what she says, but that's dependent on the property itself.
Good luck.
Right? What am I missing here?
It's very confusing.
Ask her to show you the letter.
Yeah.
And can she really afford the difference between, the extra $600 or $500?
When you say good luck, I want to understand what you're telling me. Do you think that this voucher doesn't exist in this situation? Is that what you're suggesting?
It sounds to me like something we've run into before, and I don't think it's going to work out. But I think you should.
I have another showing right after her.
I think you should go through it with it.
No,
but yeah.
They get a letter that tells them what they can spend up to. So if she has the documentation and she can afford that incremental, Section 8's only going to pay up to their level anyway.
The 1,900 number that okay.
Yep. This person's probably, in order to get above, you pretty much have to be working a low pay full-time job.
Right.
Right. I mean, meaning that like Section 8, when they say they can pay the difference, it's because this person actually is borderline Section 8, right? That kind of thing. We actually have one tenant that's that, and she's been our best tenant so far. Matter of fact, she graduated out of Section 8 after 1 month. They gave her $1,100 and said, "See ya, you're good. You can afford this place on your own." And she said, "Yeah, I can." What was it? You said something okay. So yes, see the letter. I think it's okay to go through with it, but I don't believe it's going to happen. The other thing you'll get a lot of questioning on, which you can't do, is Section 8 will allow someone to pay X, let's say $2,500, but they will not allow, if they say maximum rent on this place is $2,000, they won't allow $500 under the table. Yes. It's got to be above board, on the table, in the lease, paid monthly, or you're creating fraud on a federal, because Section 8 is a federally funded program. That would be a federal fraud.
We don't do anything that goes against the rules.
Correct. It's got to be above board for sure. Yeah. But you'll have I can't even tell you. Like anyone whose voucher isn't high enough, they'll ask if they can pay on the side.
Right.
And your answer has to be no. Right. Yes. The other thing that I found, I kind of found is like, we'll have the place rented, and we rented it for $27.41 or $42 per month. We had the other side rented for almost the exact same amount, really close, within $50 anyway. So we have 2 sides rented for that. And then one of our tenants moves out, and next thing you know, our rent at, whatever, $2,700 was not affordable, and the place had to be $2,300 or something. And I'm like,
how did you make that determination?
You said yes to the last 2, and it's like a black box. And I found it kind of frustrating. It's just not uniform enough for my liking. This is St. Paul, not Minneapolis, and we've had some really good, what do they call them, housing coordinators or whatever. Mm-hmm. So our HAP, or housing coordinator, we have one who was so awesome. That if I could only work with her, I'd probably do Section 8 all the time. But I've had a lot of frustration where they just won't get back to you at all. And then I've also had frustration with a lot of the tenants need hand-holding to get the paperwork in. They'll say, I sent that. And the answer is they did not send it.
Hand-holding.
Yeah.
But what I'll say is I'm really impressed with the Minneapolis Public Housing Authority's staff, and have had really good experience with them. So
Good.
that's why I can continue, and it works, right?
Yeah, I've loved the St. Paul HAP inspectors, right? Not the housing ones,
Right.
but the St. Paul program inspectors, and and the program itself, like I said, I've had really poor communication with the staff, except with the exception of one. And again, like someone will say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to get that to him today," and you'll follow up with them every day, and sometimes they'll just lie and say they sent it, and it's like,
Yeah.
why would you do that?
Why?
You know, you're not going to get the place by lying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
Can we move on to?
Sure.
We've been coming up against the end of the hour here, but I want to hear more about conversions.
Sure.
Duplex to triplex.
Sure.
So duplex to triplex conversions are extremely difficult. So, and I'm going to talk about, I do mine in Minneapolis, but it's about building code. So there's a difference between a single family home and a duplex is one set of code, and a triplex up to 500 units is a different set of code. So that's commercial code. So a triplex has to meet the same code that a 100-unit building has, right? So when you make a conversion from a duplex to a triplex, you have to meet the new code anywhere that you make an alteration. So and part of the problem is everyone wants to add a unit in the attic, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what people have: high ceilings, they got stairwell. It's almost impossible. I would advise anyone who wants to do that not to do it.
Just to turn it into extra living space for the unit below it, correct?
Add bedrooms. So, I'll circle back, but adding 2 bedrooms to a third floor that's hooked into the second floor gets you close to the same amount of rent as having, maybe 75%. I tell people it's way, way easier. And you literally can't get the permits passed because you need to meet fire and sound barrier, and the floor between the second and the third floor won't meet it.
Yeah, it's got to be ripped out and redone.
It's not worth it.
Yeah.
Adding a unit in the basement, very easy. That's where you want to do it. Now, you have to make some changes to the stairwell. The rise and run has to be different. The width, you have to make it fire rated, and you have to fire rate all the way up that stairwell. But in a basement unit, you can also have one form of egress exit versus having 2. So on a third floor, you have to have 2 forms of exit. And it can't face the street. So what are you going to do? That's really hard.
You have to build a stairwell off the back of the house
Yes.
that goes through what used to be a window, right? It's now a door.
And
essentially, right?
Yes, and you have to have a stairwell, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's much, much easier. So we did one conversion of a third floor, and it was the hardest thing I ever did, and it was arduous, right? Now,
I think that's the house I walked through. I just feel like it was. Yeah.
And
Was it an old fire burned out place or something like that?
it had a fire at one point.
Fire. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but it was super hard. But we've done lots of, we've added units in the basement. But more than that, what I tell people is, for a while, we bought side by sides, and we 2 bedroom, 1 unit on the first floor. We added 2 bedrooms, 1 unit in the basement. We took rents from $1,000 a month or $1,200 a month up to I get $2,400 a month. So, those are some of the best buys I've ever done in my life, right? Another great, and I like to share some of these stories so people know what to look for. We bought an illegal triplex. They advertised it, said it wasn't conforming. Everyone who went in there wanted to figure out how to make it into triplex. We didn't care. We said, we'll keep it as a duplex. It's going to be 5 bedrooms and the other one's 4. And, we got such a crazy deal. There was probably 10 bids on it, right? And they accepted one offer, but it fell through. And we resubmitted with no contingencies, right? Because I have banks that will underwrite anything. I know I'm going to get it.
Yeah.
And I do my own inspections because I'm a general contractor. We put we paid $300,000 for it. We put about $40,000 in renovations. We got the loan for $440,000 because that was the ARV. It's now worth about $550,000, but we literally had no money in. So those are the type of situations that we look for.
And that can happen again. It's just about being in the game. It's like, stop staring at a spreadsheet and start talking to people, right?
I tell people, you have to go into all the places to figure out, how can I make money, right? You need real estate agents that know what they're doing, right? Or you have to be such an expert that you know all the answers. And a lot of times people go, oh, well, I have a friend that's a realtor. I tell them, no. Find someone who is an investor-driven or owns investment properties themselves. Yeah. Like, you need to understand what, commingled utilities in the basement means. Like, you can lose a lot of money. I mean, I've made a bunch of mistakes, right? That was one of my first mistakes. I had a laundry and it was hooked into the first floor, and I ended up having to pay for the person's electricity and heat for like 18 months worth that they were there and they could have got triple damages.
Wow. Is that the rule?
Yeah. That's the state law.
Triple damages
and all of the utilities that were commingled. So I happen to have someone who was an attorney that knew, and wasn't her first rodeo.
She may have been looking to rent a place where, the gas line for the dryer is coming from my meter.
That's
I'm
literally
gonna rent this place.
That's right. I mean, it cost me about $5,500.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. So just think about, the heat for 2 winters, right?
We've kind of beat this to get death on this show, but what sort of codes do you think could be rolled back in Minneapolis in order to promote more affordable housing? And do you think, for example, the rise and run of the stairs, does this matter? Are we just kind of joking ourselves thinking that we need it for safety? And do you think if the code was rolled back, would it have a noticeable effect on affordable housing?
You know what? Affordable housing is a loaded term. So right now, the cost to build, like, I can't build a fourplex or less and make the numbers come out. I have friends that are very prolific developers here in town. They can't make any 75, 100 unit, 200 unit building pencil right now because the rents have not increased very much in Minneapolis, and the costs of building and the interest rates make it prohibitive. So it's very difficult.
Tax and insurance as well, right?
Right. All the expenses have gone up. Yep. So it's tough. So the only buildings that are going up right now are subsidized buildings where they get TIF tax money, tax credits. But those developers make a good amount of money. It's just how much the rent is for those, right? I mean, I think you could probably do a whole segment on affordable housing using TIF money, but you really need to get someone in that really spends a lot of time on that. But
Chris Sherman.
Yeah.
Do you know him?
Yeah.
I haven't met him. Do you know him actually?
Well, there's other people I could advise, but you have to understand when you start taking money, they come with a lot of strings. So you had someone on that does build some affordable. I forgot his name.
Yeah. Michael.
Yeah. 651.
Yeah, 651.
Michael 651.
Yeah.
Michael Williams.
Yeah. I'm the antithesis. I don't, other than 4D, I have never taken subsidies because they come with such strings. They want to accomplish multiple goals, right? Yeah. And it's at your expense.
Yeah.
And a lot of these programs are set up so they don't really end up, helping you. They can actually hurt you unless the only way that you can either buy or build is by taking the subsidy. And then
the whole project better be worth it to take that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's next for you, Bruce?
Oh,
well, we got a little time left here.
Yeah. Well, can I interrupt? I want to ask because Bruce was actually on he was like the landlord representative when it came to things like rent control or housing policy. Can you explain to us what that is exactly? Because I'm not sure. I mean, I read some of the posts, but outside of that, I don't know much about what you did. So
Yeah.
could you explain what your role was?
Yes.
And what you learned, how it impacted? I mean,
Yeah, I'm on the City of Minneapolis Advisory Committee on Housing, and I served on the rent stabilization, rent control
that's what I was thinking.
group
Yep.
that talked about it. And what I would say in retrospect is everyone that came into the meeting already had their mind made up. So it was just a matter of who was able to get more of their people on that committee. Because I think the vote was like 14-12, right? So, I mean, no one changed their mind. And the advocates just spoke
That's
about.
all they do all day long.
Yeah.
Whereas the landlords are actually running a business.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, I have great compassion for tenants, and I believe in some of the tenant rights that we've passed, right? A lot of them are very good. But, you know, rent control hasn't worked anywhere. It's just proven. And it's a ideological thought process that this should work, and it doesn't work.
Right.
You know,
So how long was this committee then? What did you?
we met for about 9 months and had speakers and went through lots of personal experience we heard. I mean, we had activist groups that would come in and protest and stop our meetings to try to influence, and you know, but it gave everyone a chance to voice, you know, their concerns or have a voice, right? But it didn't end up. Ultimately, it needs to be decided by the voters and by the people that run the city, right? And so I think, I mean, there was an article that just came out a couple of days ago in the Wall Street Journal making a comparison between Minneapolis and St. Paul, and it's a case study, right?
I didn't see that.
Yeah, it was on the 15th, I think. I also
Can you write that down? Let's look that one up.
I also have served on advisory committees for University of California, Berkeley, University of Texas, Austin, University of Florida on infill housing and how to do that, and some of the impacts from it, right? And a lot of that had to do with I was involved with the 2040 plan as a supporter of that, right? Because the more housing we build, the lower the rent increases happen, and it provides the housing that's needed.
Austin's proven that, right? Like they're the poster child, right?
They're a poster child. So, you know, some of my time on these committees is sharing a perspective of someone who's both compassionate to tenants and I run a business, because 90% of the people have no idea what it's like to run a business, right? And we have some council people who are extremely they're socialists, right? They're
They admit it. They call themselves socialists.
That's part of it, right? Yeah. But they also have to realize that, and I talk to them. I know them well. We talk about, I still have to run a business. You don't want to provide the housing because it's too difficult. And the city doesn't want to be on the hook for the costs, right? Well, don't make it so you put me out of business, though, either. So, you know.
Yeah. Because otherwise, I mean, the alternative too is you get people who are not compassionate and they'll have to follow the law per se, but they'll do everything they can to be hardline against a tenant, to do things that are, let's call it anti-tenant, even if it's in a minor way, right? A micro anti-tenant, instead of ones who are just like reasonable and fair because they're making enough money and they want to make their lives easy.
Well,
right?
I ask them, I say, do you want people like me to sell out to corporate landlords? Because that's what you're forcing us to do. You may not say that, but you know when
realize it.
Yeah, when you raise my city property tax by 8% or 15%, it all gets passed on to the tenants. So
until you can't.
Yeah.
And then you go. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So anything interesting happening then at the city through this advisor? Is it an active committee right now?
It's an active committee.
Okay.
Yep. It's one of the most active committees. And there's people that have lived experience like homelessness. There's people that are work for nonprofits that help provide housing. There's some developers. There's some landlords. It's a very good cross mix of people, right? And we advise the city council and the mayor on our perspective. It's a collective perspective, and it's good because we hear all sides, right? It's not just, this or this. And, I've had numerous people that say, Bruce, I really appreciate that you come here because we didn't know all these different things, right? Of what you guys face or what has to happen. And, because when they just say, well, the rent's too high, I say, well, would you buy some place for yourself? Well, I can't afford that. I said, well, here's the cost of providing this, right? Yeah. Like when the property tax portion is $400 a month, the insurance is $125 a month. Maintenance is $150 a month per unit, unit. And you start adding all these up, and the mortgages this month, they kind of go, well, I just thought people got rich. They did a study in Minneapolis, the CURA study. The average rate of return for landlords in Minneapolis is 7.1%. That's not getting rich. That's barely above what you can get for like CDs or, and you're taking all this risk, right? So.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I guess I'd like to find more about that. I've actually been to the city council meetings on housing, but not this advisory council. Yeah. Those are open public meetings, it sounds like?
Yes.
Interesting. Is it like a calendar we can look up?
Yep. You can look it up online on LIMS.
I found the key points from the Wall Street Journal article. It's called, if you guys want to look it up, What the Twin Cities Tell Us About Fixing the Housing Crisis. Okay. St. Paul enacted strict rent control. I wouldn't even say it's strict anymore. After that policy, apartment permits in St. Paul fell sharply. We all know that, 80%, 79%. Property values in St. Paul declined. Developers paused projects, blah, blah, blah. Minneapolis took a different approach. It didn't adopt rent control, instead focused on boosting housing supply through zoning reforms and easing multifamily development, if you agree with that or not. As a result, Minneapolis experienced a building boom.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes,
you
absolutely.
think building boom?
Absolutely.
Yep, especially downtown, surge in permits, new market rates going up. And I think we see Minneapolis rents going down, or at least staying.
Over the past 5-6 years, we've only averaged between a 1% and 2% rent increase in Minneapolis. And one of the things, and I don't know if the article talks about it, but the year after St. Paul passed rent control, the average rent increase in St. Paul was 4.4%, even though they had a 3% cap, because there's exceptions for a lot of things.
Exactly.
In Minneapolis, it went up 2.2%. Mm-hmm. So without rent control, the additional supply or market conditions limited it. If you tell me I can only raise 3% a year, I'm going to raise 3% no matter what every year because I can never get it recaptured. Right?
Exactly.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
I mean, we were talking as rent control was being passed. Were we doing our deal analysis show or something? We were at least talking publicly with people.
Yeah.
And this was our prediction. You're going to see rents go up faster.
Yeah.
And services drop and fees increase, right? Like, okay, I can't charge you rent, but I can charge you whatever, $50 to unlock your house because you lost your key, or $75, whatever, right? And all that kind of stuff happens too.
Less renovations, less upkeep. It's just you can't afford to it. If your expenses are growing more than your income, it's a problem.
You got to cut somewhere.
So we're not trying to gouge people. Again, it's only in Minneapolis, St. Paul, greater area, the rate of return is only 7%. So is there some outlier? Yeah. Like one of the things I say is 5% of all of the housing providers, landlords, are scum. 5% of all the renters are scum. Yeah. Right? They don't plan to pay rent. They don't, and 5% of the landlords do nothing, and they have bad conditions. So one of the things I'll just use as an example on the housing committee is we push to ensure that every place has a rental license. Like the way that a landlord can get away with things is not
by being off the radar.
Being off the radar. If you're on the radar, you get inspected.
Yeah. One of the things I liked is we've always had whatever the A tier is, or the tier for what tier 1 or whatever
tier
they call
1, tier
it, right?
2, tier 3, yes.
Yeah. And the inspectors have been wonderful to us and almost never inspect us, right? Because we pass the flying colors every time. And I really like that. And they started to lower our fees on those situations. And I was like, great, because you need to reward the good ones, right?
Yeah. As a good landlord,
I
want those guys put out of business that are terrible.
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't want them. We don't want to be associated with them. So we actually need more enforcement, and that's a place that the city could do more, but they don't have the budget for it. Like they keep passing all these regulatory laws with no enforcement.
Sure. In which case, like, it's the same thing with the mortgage mess. You know, like when the mortgage market collapsed, basically everything that happened that was that caused the mortgage market to collapse was already illegal. But if the politicians went out there and said we didn't enforce the laws, and that's why the mortgage market collapsed, then they look bad and they get voted office. Instead, they just create more laws, which aren't really truly needed, and now they look good because they're tough on mortgages, right? Yeah. And same things happen with landlords. I mean, I would argue, even though I think some of the things they passed, I would argue that a lot of things they passed actually are bad for tenants, and including I think limitations on damage deposits, for example.
Right.
I can't tell you how many people that I would have said yes to if I could have collected it.
I have to turn them down now.
Yep, exactly. And I would have said yes before with this caveat of a second deposit, right? That kind of thing. So just little things like that. And that's just one example, but that's bad for tenants,
One thing if we're getting close to the wrap up is I actually think because interest rates are coming down some, and I think they need to lower the Fed rate in order to stimulate, right? Yeah. I think we're going to see a resurgence. So, if people are thinking about getting into buying a duplex or a triplex, house hacking, whatever it is, I think in the next year or two, I think that you're going to see quite a rise because there's
a rise in costs, right?
Not in costs, in demand.
Oh, demand.
But costs might go up too, right? Yeah. But I think you need to have a good realtor. You have to be prepared. You have to have your down payment ready. You have to understand what you're looking for, right?
Yeah. Which, if you start looking now, you kind of learn what you're looking for,
right? So
that when the time is ready, you're not learning then,
right? Yeah.
Well, any goals or anything new that you want to try in the next year or so, Bruce? Or it sounds like you have your systems down and
we have everything pretty well set.
Cool.
And I think for me, we'll probably start to sell one property a year to just lower how much work it is, and just to make life easier. So I think. I happen to know a dozen people like me that want to start selling. So there's going to be an opportunity for younger people to get in. Now, the key is, will the price be something that they can afford, right? Because right now that's a problem.
Yeah.
Or will the rents that it make sense?
Yes. Does the equation work?
So. Yep.
And will they be in neighborhoods that people want to live in? It seems like there's good inventory right now. I looked at every single small multifamily listed in St. Paul.
Yeah.
The other day I went through every single one. There's 3 that are in Class B or better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of clients who want a house hack in higher crime areas, period.
Yes.
So it's a struggle.
Well, I, for one, am really thankful that you came, so appreciate it. And hopefully we'll get to run into you some more, right?
Yeah, I appreciate you guys putting this on because I've enjoyed every one of them that you guys have published. And I think it's a great learning template for other people.
Sweet.
Very cool. Well, we appreciate your support and coming over today.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye.
So what's going on today, Tim?
Hey, man. On my way over, I was listening to a different podcast about build to rent, right? And so we talked about that a little bit with John from RPM. And, this build to rent episode wasn't about one-offs. It was about building a whole community. But it was just kind of a nice thing that's kind of hit my radar a couple of times. I mentioned I have a friend building duplexes in St. Paul, and I've got that transaction. So certainly something that's been on my radar often and just kind of coming up.
Yeah, it is. It is something that you see people who have your experience, my experience, what's the next frontier? You know, building new construction is certainly a path a lot of people take. I don't know anything about that world. What do you think you would do? If you were going to buy, I like the idea of you have all these people that are sitting on double lots.
Yeah.
And those lots went up in value. You would think, once, you know, you can build up to a 4-family in St. Paul really easily, right? I mean, really easily. Zoning wise, it's very easy.
Sure. Yeah, that's it. Zoning, yes. Code,
everything else.
Code, not. Yeah.
Difficult. And everything else, meaning, yeah, just all your hard costs, your soft costs, and all the regulatory stuff involved in.
Yeah, I mean, my thought process is you can't pay much for the lot at all if you're going to make it work. I've seen the numbers a little bit because of my friend who's doing it. Plus, I've got this duplex in St. Paul, right? The one on LaFond. And you have to be tight on that cost. I mean, like, even getting anything above, and I'm talking about in the city itself, you know, city of St. Paul, you're going to have problems if you go above 50 grand for the lot. Like that, yeah, you have to buy cheap lots to make the numbers work. That probably isn't the same numbers in the suburbs, all right? Like, I mean, and even in Northeast Minneapolis, you might be able to make numbers work a little above that, right? But even still, I think if you're paying $100 for a lot, you're already doomed. You know,
I'm trying to find that lot that was next to, remember Kevin's place on Humboldt?
Yeah.
Wow, they still have it listed for $99.
Speaking of which, shout out to Kevin. I actually had dinner with him the other night last week.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we went out and we had the best steak tartare at Gus Gus. Right?
Oh, I keep hearing about that place. Dude, I love steak tartare.
Oh, my gosh. If you go there, get the tartare. It's
the tartare?
Amazing.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, I want to go back just for it. We should go there. I would have that as my dinner. Yeah. It was just an appetizer, but it was outstanding. And it's always fun to meet and talk with Kevin. So,
well, you should lowball wouldn't you like to work with that woman again? You should lowball the people on Humboldt Avenue. How great would Kevin be as a landlord neighbor?
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah, exactly.
Shout out Kevin, one of the all-time great guys. Well, that's cool.
How about you? What's going on?
I think I just got an offer accepted.
Nice.
I had took a little break in between. We just recorded with Bruce, obviously, and I caught up on some texts and, okay. Whatever. I'll just put it out there. Pinehurst Avenue.
Okay.
So
don't know where Pinehurst is.
You know where it is, right?
I do not.
Okay.
No.
So, you know Ford Parkway.
Yeah.
It runs parallel with Ford Parkway.
Okay.
It's due north. So, you know where like the Jimmy John's on Ford Parkway is?
Sure, yeah.
Around there, there's a Coldwell Banker. Yep. There's Tiff's, Tiffany Lounge,
I know
right?
the Coldwell Banker for sure.
So Pinehurst is just the street right behind Ford Parkway.
Okay.
And gosh, okay, yeah, whatever. I'll just
I'll
put it all out there. Yeah, it's a great neighborhood. This is a little like 30s or 40s post-war home. Okay. $1,200 footprint. 1,200 square foot footprint. Okay. Although the back, so it would be like an 850 footprint, 2-bedroom, 1-bath.
But they added an addition.
But they added an addition off the back, but it used to be a porch, and they never leveled the floor completely. Yeah. So there's a little bit of a slant.
That's not uncommon.
I almost priced it as if that back isn't really there, even being real conservative. A friend of mine is like, yeah, I got this house. It's all distressed. These people have mold. They have a structural issue, blah, blah, blah. I don't think they really have any problems. Like I looked through the whole house. Yeah, there's a little mold.
Stuff, yeah.
There's a little mold on a ceiling. My main concern was this house is tiny. The living room is tiny. The back is slanted. I'm like, I think I can deal if there's a water intrusion, or it's either water intrusion or it's venting, right? With a house this tiny, how expensive could it possibly get to fix those issues? Sure. What do you think? I don't know. A couple grand, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, most likely. You know, I mean, if it's a roof, then that's obviously more than a couple grand.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing about the house, Tim. The windows are new. Mm-hmm. The siding is new. The roof is new. The furnace is new.
So they might have fixed the issue.
They put
just because you put a new roof on, that doesn't stop the mold. You still have to take care of the mold. So the problem could be fixed for all you know, or it might be there.
Well, these folks bought the place. I don't know if I said the address, but I'm going to bleep it out. But it's the 1900 block of Pinehurst.
Address, yeah.
Did I?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. These people bought it for $283 in like 2018, 2019. There's lots of comps, and there's a finishable basement.
Okay.
So my thought, it is kind of a tricky one, and it's in good shape. And I think the next cheapest house that's ever sold over there is $350, at least on the MLS. I'm sure there's off-market stuff.
Sure.
It's a little bit of a tricky scenario for a potential BRRRR where you want all the money out, because how hard do you go with the renovation? Because you could certainly overdo it. I think I just finished the basement as cheap as possible.
It would be tough because, I mean, if you look at 300 as your end price, right? If you had it on a 25% loan to value, you'd have to be at 400. That's what's spending zero.
Right.
So if you have to spend 50, you're not at 450, but you get the point, right? Like, I think you would have a hard time burning that one. But at least in the full sense, like, I'm okay with a partial BRRRR, unlike, what we've talked about in other deals. I mean, like, look, if you get half your money back, you still have, only half of your,
right.
only half of the normal investment. That's not bad.
I think there's a world where I spend $30,000 on another bathroom and bedroom in the basement. Now it's a 4.2.
Mm-hmm.
And I get pretty dang lucky with like a 430 appraisal.
Okay.
Because all of the sales comps, I mean, you just look up and down the street, it's all like upper 4s, 5s, 6s. Okay. So like this is already going to appraise at one of the cheapest houses in the whole neighborhood.
Sure.
So there'll be an element
of... so you're pulled up by the neighborhood.
Exactly. There'll be an element of luck. But at the end of the day, it's what we keep talking about on this podcast, that I find these deals just because people who are in the business happen to think of me,
mm-hmm.
and they wanted 3.25, and so yeah, I guess I have a little winter project, cool. Finishing that basement. I think it'd be a good midterm rental, like right in that, it's kind of right in the mix of everything in the Highland Village.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I got to rent out the hoarder house. I got to go meet 2 people, like I talked about during the episode. We are doing our holiday mixer tonight. Well, It already happened if you're listening to this.
Yep. We've got some, I've noticed there's some new people coming, so I'm excited for that. And again, by the time this comes out, we'll have already met you. But if you haven't been to a meetup before, I think the last mixer went so well that I think I'd like to make that like every 3rd or 4th one anyway, right? Like, I think it's good. I don't think we need to always be doing programming. And either way, we'd love to come meet you. We'd love to hear what you're doing and introduce your friends, right? And that's how business partnerships are formed.
Totally. Yeah, the holiday mixer. Oh, no, it already happened. Never mind.
Yeah.
Just put to plug it. Well, cool.
But we can plug the meetup. Go to meetup.com, look for Twin Cities Investing. And that's us. There's about 1,500 members. And so if you find one with a couple hundred, that's not the right one. And there you go.
Yeah. Thanks to Network Title for being a great sponsor. Thank you to RPM Viking. Make sure you have them check your property out if you're looking for a manager. And then special thanks to Shook Rentals for all your support. Oliver and the gang over there would love to get you set up if you're looking for a competitor to like a Buildium or Appfolio. They offer a really good product, especially for locals here. So
yeah, and it's for individual landlords who are not trying to manage for other people. It's perfect for that, right?
Totally.
It's got all the features you would need, and it's like with our discount code, it's $4 a month per unit for the first year.
Easy
and then
peasy.
It's a whopping 5 after that. But please use the code because they want to know how many people are coming from the episode. It's not about the money. It's about letting them know that you're supporting us and them.
I mean, yeah, if you listen to the podcast regularly, why not? Even if $4 a unit per month, there's probably a free version of something out there, but it's not going to be a local company. You're not supporting like local people. Building something.
And most of them will charge you more than that just for the quick payments, which they offer automatically.
That's a good point.
And
maybe there is no free lunch.
Their messaging system is awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty killer. The other thing I should mention, since we're bringing this, all 3 of our sponsors have a deal for you. So they have codes too, but the reality is if you mention them, right? Like if you go to April at network and just say, hey, I'm a listener of the pod. Can I get the special? I think it's a one-off. I think it's your first deal. You'll get a discount. Same thing with RPM Viking. If you get signed up with them, they'll give you a maintenance credit. So there's lots of cool things. Please support them because they support us. And this is not free to put on and not even close. So thank you.
It's an entire bedroom of my house, people. I have a 3-bedroom house, okay? And not a cheap neighborhood. And this is one of them.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I love it. All right. Love you guys. See ya.
Thanks. Bye.
That's it for today's show. You can visit the TwinCitiesRealEstateInvesting.com website for show notes, tips, tricks, and other local real estate investing information. Adam and Tim would like to meet with you. To schedule a one-on-one meeting with either Adam or Tim, go to TwinCitiesRealEstateInvesting.com/schedule.